All right. Here we go. All right, look at us, back to back.
Back to back. It is it's not November. It's September. Kind of leap ahead. I'm excited about Thanksgiving. It's fall weather. You got orange and you got leaves falling. It's not November though. It's September 14th, the year 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, episode 714.
714. You mentioned orange. Is that, all come in with the vols and everything?
It's just funny because as soon as it went live, my mind like drifted on, because we were talking about the weather, and I was thinking about Thanksgiving. I was thinking about traveling, see my family in Nashville, and I was thinking about this weekend. The Vols play Florida. It's a lot of orange. It's a big game. Yeah, there's a little bit of orange in the air. It was not one of my favorite colors, but my two favorite sports teams have orange. Not the greatest color schemes on the planet with the Dolphins and the Vols, but they're both undefeated. And so yeah, it was a little bit on my mind. But it's hard not to when you get weather like this. Got a little taste of it this last weekend in Wisconsin. You had a lot of I wore pants one day. You got hoodies. You got great weather. It's time for football. You got the baseball, Major League Baseball playoffs. Aren't those coming around the corner sometime soon? Not that I pay attention, but yeah, it was nice. I was sitting outside last night at Hayden's baseball game, and it wasn't totally miserable to sit in the bleachers at 5:30. Normally it's like 9,500 degrees. Last night I was like, kind of good. I could have worn a long sleeve shirt tonight, but yeah. Thinking about my balls, thinking about football, thinking about the end of the season, thinking about off season. Thinking about a lot of things, but always thinking about Thanksgiving because it is the greatest holiday ever.
Yeah, it is. And so as I mentioned before the podcast, I'm thinking about getting, how do I get faster and stronger next year? And
already.
Yeah, of course we are, man. That's how it goes, right? Afterwards, you're like, damn it. All right, I missed that opportunity, but now it's time to do it again or whatever. But I'm not really thinking about racing, but I am thinking about the idea of getting stronger and faster. And I think, we can maybe talk about that a little bit, the right way to do that,
Yeah, it's a great topic. And it is like, we're such addicts. I mean, I think everybody's like, addiction and being an addict, like has, this like, vibe around it where it's always something terrible, which a lot of times it is, people are addicted. But when you're addict, you think of like crack, right? Old school crack cocaine, or you're addicted to weed, or you're addicted to painkillers or alcohol, but we're all addicted to something. I'd guess probably 95% of people listening to this podcast are addicted to your phone. You just are, flat out. Almost everyone is, period. But we're also addicted to this sport. And we're also, a lot of people are addicted and obsessed with getting better. I mean, I said this in my weekly email, not even from like a coach's standpoint. I drove home from, Wisconsin on Monday. I had arguably one of our, best results as a team, like at a race. I didn't listen to a 7.5 hour drive home. I did pull a one stopper or only a 10-minute pit stop at the gas station. But I listened to 0 podcasts, very little music. Some of it was probably a little bit of detox from all the peopling, but I was already thinking of, all right, things seem to go pretty well. I wonder what I can do to make them better. I wonder what I could do. Maybe I can do this and like scribbling like safely, mind you, safely with all eyes on the road, cruise control. Jotting down a few notes in my little moleskin black kind of like training notepad I keep with notes and stuff I take each week and just kind of things to think about, and was making some notes like, yeah, but I think it can even be better. And that's just the mentality all athletes have. Like, that race this last weekend, it's like, you're either two ends of the spectrum, right? You had a really good race or a great race, and you like finally like saw that you're capable of doing more. So naturally, you're not going to settle. You want more. So you're all about getting better next year. How do I get even faster? Or you had a great race halfway through and then you got like, a cramp, or you had nutrition issues. So now all your focus on fitness is there right now. I got nutrition stuff to focus on. Or you had a really poor race and you're like, I thought I had it all right. What the hell? I gotta get better. Right. Or you felt like you were in an okay spot, but you maybe didn't do everything right, but you had like, a mechanical or, something else happened like you did. And you're like, you left a lot out there, both in training, but in on the race. And everyone kind of feels like it's just weird, right? I think as people were like this anyway, and have grown more like this even in the last few years, is that the length of time we are satisfied, like shrinks every year. Yeah, it was just really great. I'm on cloud 9 for, I don't know, 32 seconds. And then all of a sudden you're back down like in the doldrums, and you got the case. I think one of our very first podcast, we talked about having a case of the butts, right? You finish a great race, and before you're even out of the expo, or excuse me, before you're even out of like the food tent, you're like, yeah, I did. I PR by like 2.5 hours, but really think I could do better here and there. Like, just like the fact that that's the conversation you hear is always like, you always hear but this or but that. And it really is. It's interesting, like how addicted we are to getting better and doing things, maybe not necessarily differently, but just trying to squeeze every last ounce of what we're capable of out of our body. And it's an interesting time of year as a coach. In an athlete, we have people's end of season, you have people already thinking about next year. It's always a busy time, but it's kind of like the mental and emotional side about planning next year and getting invigorated and getting pumped. You can't do, well next year unless you plan the rest of this year the right way.
Yeah. I had crossing the Ironman finish line is kind of like hitting a great putt on the 18th hole after a shitty round. It's like, I still got it. I know I can do this. It's like, it just sort of drags you back in. Dude, I was thinking about when you were saying you're driving and taking notes. I imagine, I was like, I had you pictured as with a dictaphone like Louis Litt on Suits. Just writing down. I've got to get one of those. Oh my God, that would be amazing if I came around a corner and saw you just like, all right, I got to remember that. You're a strong coach. You're the best.
Yeah, then I end it, with some positive affirmation. It's like, Coach Rebby, you got this. You got it. You are lit. Give us some positive affirmation. That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. No, I you know what? That's actually would probably have been a little bit safer of a route.
You can do that on your phone,
all the time. I had to listen to music on my morning walk with waffles, and like my head just can't like help but drift off somewhere else to training. It's just, and we're all like that, right? And just for the record, you know what I'm doing today?
What?
I'm skipping the intro.
You are? Well, let's post a picture of the shirt.
Yeah, that's right. Just take a picture of the shirt, and that can be the topic. Yeah, I'm just rolling right through, baby. We're back to back, feeling flexible, which is how you should be. But before we get into the meat of the podcast about getting faster and getting stronger, and maybe just kind of identifying areas of weakness, and again, like we talked about it yesterday, not going about towing that line right between being mentally and emotionally fresh and physically fresh, and the things you have to balance, right? Mm-hmm. It really is. It's kind of like, you go to like one of those carnivals or fairs, and you see that lady that's like bouncing 19 plates on her nose. That is pretty much like Ironman training. Like you're balancing this very delicate. It's like a very delicate dance of all these things you're juggling with hours and time and stress and availability and responsibilities and expectations and results and panic and all these things, and you just got to kind of get it right and get to race day without having any of them fall. But the main thing is like you can't sign up for, like, you can't have just finished Ironman Wisconsin and then immediately register and then go to Garmin Connect, go to Watch Faces, go to the Connect IQ score and count down to race day 362 days. You can't do that shit. Like you got to have incremental things that kind of keep you engaged and like put off as long as possible, the focus on the main goal, because it'll actually help you keep focused longer. But a lot of athletes, they get so far out from an event, it's kind of like, we don't do this at our house and I'm putting it off as long as possible. But it's kind of like the adult version of Elf on the Shelf. They don't wait till like the month of December. They're doing it off on the shelf in like March. And think about, if you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about, how stressful and overwhelming it is to have to do something brand new every day with an elf. That's what's doing yourself when you're focused on a race that far away. Do not be the person that's doing the elf on the shelf in March for the following December.
What in the hell is elf on the shelf?
Okay, let me give you. It's a little extra time here, so we're not doing the intro today. It is
7 minutes.
We don't do it at our house because I don't want that kind of responsibility in December. Like we are full on December rules. We just kind of do what the hell we want to. But it's like you wait. There's like this elf, right, that you have to like put in different places of the house every day and doing some kind of a skit. Like, oh, he's in the refrigerator having, a smoothie or some shit, and then your kid has to go find it. It has to be new, and of course, like how parents are, it is like all over their Facebook and all over their Instagram. It's probably like got its own Pinterest board. It's like a competition.
Okay.
So it's in it, but I always hear, just like you and I do, we hear the real life stories, right? The untold stories of the elf on the shelf world, where it's not all fun and games and greatness and Christmas. It's stress because they want to like outdo their friends and make it more exciting, because all the kids go to school and they're like, hey, guess where so-and-so found their elf today? They were, inside, mom's exhaust pipe, cleaning things out. How crazy is that? Then you're like, I got to do better. So yeah, we just don't do that, frankly, because we've already had our best holiday, which is Thanksgiving.
All right. Well, yeah, I still don't understand that, but I guess
me either.
I guess it's a big deal. I guess it's a big deal. Yeah. So before we get into the strength and speed thing, I got an email from a gentleman named David who his one of his good friends, Dax, I think Bakken, was the guy who passed away out on the Ironman bike course. And man, I saw a picture of him in one of the groups, and it was just it's just heartbreaking stuff, man. It hits you at the core, and we both just wanted to kind of like address it. And I told him I would put a GoFundMe link in our description and mention it on the podcast because he his wife and children. Man, I just can't imagine going through that. I mean, it's just it's such a happy day and an exciting day, and I guess by all accounts, Dax was really excited about the day and having a good day out of the swim and everything like that, and just to have that come down has just got to be brutal. And David said he was just a joy to be around, and I hate to hear it, man. I just so many stories out there. Sometimes I wish I could just hang out with like everybody and talk to them about stuff like the race or their lives and stuff like that. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that and put it out there, and we're sending our condolences out to the family and everything, and just a bummer, man. It's just sad to you.
It is, and it's weird, right? It's like, and he sent an email to us and said, he listened to the podcast, and I think there's all kinds of reactions you can have, right, to stuff like this. From everything we know, it was a medical event he had on himself. Like, it wasn't a bike accident, a car and bike collision, which things that everybody thinks about. To me, it just always makes you think, right? It always makes you reflect and think about how you spend your days, how you spend your hours. And I think people always go different directions with that, right? That's and you always hear the contrarians about running and endurance sports, about how how bad it is for you and how dangerous it is, and the fact that it's not. It's what we do for our bodies is incredibly healthy. Yes, there are always things we could do, I think, probably better, right? To get regular checkups and to make sure we're in a good spot, sure. But I mean, it was funny. I was even listening to Sam Laidlow's post Ironman Nice World Championship interview, and he just frankly even talked about how incredibly beneficial. He was talking about overall health. He said aerobic training is just so good for your body and what it does for you, and it's 100% true. Obviously, there are a lot of ways to look at that, but what we do and how we treat our bodies, in this life is in my opinion, one of the most underrated things in life that we oftentimes, very much overlook. And you have all different shapes of sizes and people that you look at some individuals and you think that they're incredibly healthy, but then you figure out that they probably barely eat and they never work out. Or so is that healthy? Because they look better, right? And then you got somebody else that's out there working hard and losing weight. They might not look the quote unquote ideal shape, but I guarantee they're healthier. And so I think we all have this vision of health, and it's something that we chase, I think, in a positive way. And for all accounts, reading through some of the things, like he was smiling, before and after the swim, he was smiling on his bike, and you're always thinking, I have people like, oh well, it's maybe I shouldn't do this, but I can tell you from personal, in my own self, I'm just going to speak for me. That's it. That is that if I was ever going to go early, I'd want to be in the water. I just would. Mm-hmm. I would want to be, because I know I would be at my happy. I've said this, and this may not have been how he felt, but for everything you've read, it was like he was smiling and having just a really great time, which is why this is, I think, so hurtful and impactful, but also so powerful in that, life, and we've talked about, unfortunately, death way too much in the last month and a half and 2 mm-hmm. months. It's hit us close to home. This has happens every day, unfortunately. But that as people and individuals, we have this choice to spend our lives doing a certain thing that we love. And I think, and for me specifically, like, I would want to go in the water. When I do go one day, I want to be cremated and want my ashes dumped in the water somewhere. That is where I'm at most peaceful. So if I did go, I would know that I was at one of my happiest places. And I think that my family would get a little bit of solace from that, And we get choices. And what I don't want people to hear, what I don't want people to think and think well, maybe I shouldn't do this. There's a million different reasons and a million different opportunities each day to convince yourself not to do something healthy for yourself. But the most dangerous thing you can do, in my opinion, is to sit on your butt and eat crappy food and stress out. And that's where the majority of Americans are. They will die unspectacularly in their own home, and it might take longer because they're depressed and they're sad and they're overweight and they're stressed and they don't like life. In a lot of ways, and I talked about this a lot when I got out of treatment, was how different my life is I might not have died, and I'm incredibly thankful that I never did, and I very well probably should have in a lot of ways, but I was dying. I was not living. I might have been alive, but I was dying each day. I was miserable. I was unhappy. I was sad. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was ashamed. I was fearful. I was living with all those feelings every day while shoving as much alcohol down my throat as possible. But I was alive. So there is a huge difference in being alive and living. And I just think it's really important to encourage everyone, as when you hear things and you feel things that hit close to home that might make you, second guess something, instead of it making you second guess doing something that's great for your body, make it, allow it to think further about what more can I do for myself and for others. And it's a sad lesson that I think we're reminded of far too often. But when I hear stuff like that, it makes me want to go ride my bike. Yeah. It makes me want to go swim. It makes me want to go for a run because life is short and life is fleeting, and we never, ever, ever know. But if you are going to go out one day, you wanted to go out kind of on your own terms. And this is, again, not me speaking for him or his family, but for me, like, I want to go out on my own terms, doing something that I love, knowing that I chased the dreams that I wanted, not sitting on my couch, terrified to do anything because why I might live 10 years longer I would have started dying a lot sooner. And I just think, I really hope that everyone, when they hear the news like this, is propelled to live harder and freer and with more happiness and with more vigor than to just flip the switch and start dying sooner. And I just think it's an important message to try to articulate, and during something like this that I think we can lose sight of far too often.
Man, yeah, that's really huge. We've talked about before this concept of safety over freedom and being, I think that's what I do see that a lot now. Is I think a lot of people, choose to sit around and just play it safe. And you're right, man. You gotta go live and do your life and do the things you want to do. And I mean, because you're right. We all, everybody dies, and you don't want to spend your life kind of just protecting every day, and to be out there. And, when he emailed me, it's, the thought of losing a buddy. I mean, I went through this and we talked about it before, but my buddy Pete, who would come to all my races, we used to go to Final Four, and he would just drive down from Milwaukee to Chattanooga or to Louisville or whatever. He was always at Wisconsin. He was out at all my Ironman, and, he died on a treadmill. He was in really good shape, and it just happened, and so I totally understand what, David is going through, and his family, and but Pete and I, we lived, man. We had the best time and the best memories, and it doesn't go away. I think about him all the time. But he lived hard, man. And we had a great time, and it's just reality, and it sucks. And I do like what you said, because everybody's going to go at some point, and you might as well just have the best time you can while you're here, and do the things you love, and try to get better, and enjoy things, because it's coming. So.
Yeah, I mean,
Take
not to
chances,
sound
man.
dark, but thinking about Pete, because I remember when that happened, and having how close you guys were, and having met him, and him being there the first Ironman you did. It was like, what if it had happened 10 minutes later while he was on the couch?
Right.
People were like, oh, well, he died on his couch. It's so real. It's interesting, right? How things can be portrayed, right? Well, I wonder, but you knew Pete, but on the surface, like, oh, well, I wonder if he was more active. He just died sitting on his couch. How terrible was that? And then you got, 10 minutes earlier, he's on the treadmill, taking care of himself, and it happens. You're like, oh, well, what if he hadn't done that? We can't what if anything, because nobody knows anything. Can't predict anything. The only thing you have control over is to enjoy your life to the fullest and treat your body the best it can, right? Because the fact of the matter is like, the more you do things you love, the higher the likelihood is that's how you're going to go anyway. You run 50 miles a week, or you're out playing tennis 6 matches a week, or out doing this. Like the likelihood, if you do it to your 70, is that you're going to go out doing one of those.
Yeah.
It's not a reason to not live. And I just think that, I know that's how a lot of people are wired, especially in the last 3 or 4 years.
100%, dude. They'll be like, are you sure you want to do that again? That kind of thing.
That's not the message. It is, and it's just not the message to send. The message is to live as fully as possible. And, I appreciate you bringing that up, and thank you for the gentleman that sent that over. We'll, again, like you said, link to the GoFundMe for his wife and his daughter, to help out any way that you can. But again, it's a message to live.
Yeah.
Not a message to stop. Right.
Yeah.
And
I
I
agree.
think it's just, yeah.
I just want to tell a quick story about Louisville. I think it might help with the tone a little bit, because, we were sitting there, I think you were there at the pre-race dinner in Louisville one year, and Pete was sitting across from me, and we were just eating, and he was a chiropractor. And he also played on the national championship basketball team for Whitewater one year, and he was a really good athlete. And but the chiropractor, it's so funny. he looked up at me the night before the race and he goes, "Are you going to race like that?" And I said, "What?" We were just eating dinner. And he goes, "Your neck's crooked." You got a crooked neck.
Typical chiropractor, right? It's like, you see how you're holding that fork? You're totally off.
Like, we used to, back in the day, go out to we'd go to like all the Badger stuff, and his brother's a chiropractor still, and those guys, we'd be out like in the bar or something before a Final Four game, and there would be an open table, and they would just adjust themselves. It was just like crazy. But he was awesome, man. You know, like, yeah. So, but he was a great athlete, and he loved Ironman. He didn't ever necessarily want to do it, but I think it did inspire him to stay in shape. And you know, we always talked about fitness and everything like that. And you know, so I guess we can kind of get into our stuff a little bit here.
Yeah.
How do you get strong and fast, man?
Yeah, and getting adjusted at the pre-race and before your Ironman. It's always
you can race like that. The hell,
yeah,
man. Talk about putting doubt in my mind, man.
Yeah, do you see how you're taking a sip of that cola? Man, we really got to get you back centered and balanced. You know, it's probably causing that ankle issue you got on the right side. I can just see it right now in your wrist. It all starts here. It all kind of cascades down. But what we need to do is kind of take your hand, adjust a little bit, just like that. See? Ankle feels better, doesn't it? See? It's all a chain reaction. No, and on a maybe a lighter yet serious note, when you talk about athletes that are finishing off their season, or and this is also why it's a dangerous time of year for late season races. A lot of people, their minds already drifting off to next year, right? And their races. I mean, I had athletes, right? Meetups on Friday and Saturday. They're racing 70.3 fulls. The next day they're like, "So when can we talk about next year?" I'm like, not at all right now. We're not talking about shit until you get done with this weekend. Like, we are not devoting any energy to next year and what we're going to do and what we want to accomplish and how we're going to get there until we finish this year and the dust settles.
Yeah.
You gotta let the dust settle. And I can't. And athletes, I think, don't ever hate me as much as they hate me during the month of December and 2 to 3 weeks post race, because athletes are creatures of habit. They want their structure, they want everything laid out for them. But December rules, we go all in on. Be flexible. We give some guidelines. We want you to stay active, but it's a time to re-energize. And then post race, I one of our athletes, I post Ironman, I specifically tell people, no running this week. Period. Nada. You need zero running. And I already got hate mail. Like, that's awfully mean to say, but it's, and then 1 week of total rest, just be off your feet. And then a couple weeks of just choice, do whatever the hell you want. Because when you weave things in too quickly, you attach to things that may or may not be true. Right. Mm-hmm. You always have to, just like in training, right? An athlete does their training on a Wednesday and the sky is falling. It's over. My run, I was terrible. I've never had a worse run. I don't think I can finish the race. And then the next day on the bike, never felt this good in my life. And you're like, that is training in a nutshell. And it's also planning in a nutshell. When you try to plan and tell yourself what you're not good at before you've done a really, really, really good postmortem on it. What went wrong? Not on the surface level, because triathletes generally, unless it's race week or 2 weeks before and it's got to do with athlete guide and logistics, they don't ask enough questions. Now, if it's 2 weeks before a race, then they ask all the questions. Where is the race start again? Could someone please tell me this? Are we allowed to ride with 2 wheels or 1? If it's outside of that window, they don't ask enough questions, right? Got to be nutrition. Got to be my run. Got to be my shoes. Got to be my position. Got to be this. There's always questions, but what you have to do is ask a whole lot of answers, a whole lot of questions to get more answers. Then you get one, you ask another one. Then you ask another one. Then you ask another one. Then you ask another one, right? Some are easier than normal. Like, I had a guy racing the 70.3 who generally just absolutely crushes it in training, but something just has been off in racing. And he came in a time that, I don't think either one of us were happy about. And he finishes and he comes over, and I just got done telling another athlete, I was like, I said, we haven't figured this thing out yet, because it's just not adding up. Finishes the race, bone dry, not an ounce of sweat on his body, no salt, no sweat, no nothing. The 6 previous people that have come through are just like disgustingly drenched. Humid, sweaty, dumping water, still sweating profusely, bone dry. All right, we got a nutrition and fueling problem, 100%. Okay? Things like that are a little bit easier. But everything else, like, you have to really kind of, it's like peeling an onion. There are a lot of layers to figuring out what went wrong. So, and I always kind of tell people, start with what went right and make sure that's exactly what did go right before you start figuring out what went wrong and why. And then when you make a plan for being, like you said, being faster and stronger next year, you got to go about it incrementally. You can't just throw everything at it. I got to start right now. And that means getting it all right now, which is, again, I think most athletes, when they tell themselves, got to get faster, they think about, I got to be faster tomorrow. I'm ahead of the track. I'm either right when it opens. I'm going to do some repeats. I'm going to get faster for next year. And then, February hits and they're hurt and their Achilles is blown. They're wondering why. And it's got to be small, tangible things and kind of work your way backwards from, and really just apply like a good level of deductive reasoning behind that. This was what went wrong. Right. And we're sure this is it. And then make a plan. Because as we all know, like, sometimes on race day, things just don't line up and you have a bad day. It doesn't mean you totally reinvent the wheel, right? But it's a great time of year, and it's a great time of year because you get like this seasonal EPO advantage when the weather drop into where everything seems easier, recovery is easier, it's more fun to get outside and do things. So it's a great time of year to address and think through what it is I don't do well out. And then before you even make that plan of attack, what seems the most reasonable? Well, my swim is terrible. All right, well, to get better, I got to do this. Okay, so I get that. I'm just using swimming as an example. But are you really going to be willing to go to the pool 3, 4, 5 times a week this far away from your race to actually get better at it? It's about to become a lot darker. It's about to become a lot cooler outside. Is that something you're really going to want to do? Right?
Yeah.
No. Okay, then let's not spend 4 or 5 weeks doing it for you only to end up hating swimming and wanting to take a break November, December. So there's a lot of good things you can do right now, September, October, November, to get ready for next year, but none of them have to do with going all in.
True. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
little talkative today.
Yeah. So when I think about that, and as it applies to, say, me, I know that I'm walking a fine line between wanting something and not really wanting it. We talked about a couple of weeks ago about how I'm the ambassador for the undertrained, and I think that there is a reason for that. And a lot of it is because, I enjoy a lot of other things. And I know that if I put more time in on the bike and I'm pretty comfortable with where my swim is, even though I'm not super fast, but I get out of the water feeling good the last couple years. That to me is fine. And then the bike, I think if I put more mileage in, yeah, I'd probably be faster. And the run, maybe I could run a little bit more, but I'm also, getting older, and I have to really think about what all that means to me. Is that really what I want? And do I have the determination to put that time in? And I think that's always the real question, because sure, more cycling would make me a better rider, but I feel like I was kind of like in the ballpark, like we talked about. I feel like I had a real small margin for error, but I'm okay with that. And what happened out there, I think if it all goes right, I'm right about where I think I want to be, and I'm okay with that too. So it didn't. I don't know, but the reality is, as I get older, I think speed training is good for as you get older. Trying to stay faster and also lifting or doing weight or strength training is huge. So I do a little bit of that, probably not enough. But those are the areas where I think I need to work. I don't think that, you mentioned earlier that aerobic and endurance training is great. And I totally agree with that. I think there's a fine line there. When you get older, I think too much is too much. And I think we could spend more time getting a little bit faster and a little bit stronger. And I think that would pay off more because it just shows, when you go out and, we talked about the marathon the other day. And if you go out and do that, I don't typically run quote unquote enough, but I pull it off somehow. And I think we can all do that. But really it comes down to sort of just being strong enough and getting enough in and deciding really what you want. You can always be better, but are you going to make the sacrifices? And to me, that's what it comes down to. But I've done 10 races. I know what it takes to finish a full and get in that spot where I'm ready. But I also know that if I'm going to decide to do another one next year, which I have no idea right now, but the reality is that, it started for me 10 years ago, the whole thing. And if I want to get better, that reality starts now for next year. And it doesn't mean going out and doing sprints tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's I have to really take small bites and start moving in that direction where I'm capable and building it slowly. I mean, that's what it takes. I mean, it's just a long game of patience and focus. And, it doesn't have to come overnight, and it can't come overnight because you'll probably burn out and start hating the sport. I always talk about this, when you're in training, you can kind of tell when you kind of are in this spot where you're loving running, and then all of a sudden you get out of that spot and it becomes hard and your breath gets harder and you're starting to, then you're crossing a threshold where it's easy to not like it at that point. So you have to be patient with that continuum. It's you're here on the continuum, and if you try to get too far to the right, you're going to not like it. So what you said about swimming is awesome, because people who go balls in on swimming right now might just start hating it by November. So just, stay within yourself and stretch yourself just a little as you're going. And you've got more time right now. But I always try to push it into 2 or 3 months. And that's the other side, right? Is I kind of wait. And then I kind of ramp it all up real quick, and I don't get burned out, and I feel pretty good going to the race, but I'm not quite as flexible and durable as I probably could be.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I may,
you may
use you as an example. So because I think, listen, you're not the only athlete that's like that, right? A lot of athletes are like that. They have and they recognize that, you recognize you have a very small amount of time that you can really go all in and be in and enjoy it. Right. Because again, that's the huge part of this whole thing that I think people underestimate is allowing yourself to do things and do it for long enough to where you always still enjoy it and still think you can do better, not hating it so much because you went all in and you did too much that you see now that it's not worth it and I want to quit. And so let's say you've got an athlete like yourself who traditionally goes in definitely undertrained, but you also has a very small amount of time where you can ask a lot without them resenting the sport or the amount of time and effort and fatigue and stress that they have to dedicate to doing something like a 70.3 or a marathon or an Ironman. That's the fact of the matter, right? And that's always something you have to ask and have a conversation with athletes is hey, and that's why I think it's always great to plan out, right? Like, I know you're thinking of these two races, they come in two totally different times. Like I had an athlete on the way to Wisconsin, I had a call with thinking about doing their first full, and the choices were Lake Placid in July, Maryland in September. And my first thought is, okay, two totally different courses.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't be any different, right? So there's more time is going to be allocated to Lake Placid than Maryland. Lake Placid, you live somewhere cold. You live in Canada, so you're going to be doing the majority of your riding inside, which is not ideal and can lead to major burnout. But it's also during the school year, so that has its benefits. Maryland, less time, right? Less hours, but falls in the summer. Your kid's going to college. That's going to be stressful. Are you going to have, but you get to train outside. And then I legit ask questions like, are you going to have mom guilt? Every parent has some kind of level of dad guilt, mom guilt for taking time away with their kids. I'm like, your kid's going to college. Are you going to have, guilt for training when you could be spending time with them? So like all those things you have to think about, right? When it comes to picking a race. And so, even for coaches, like coaches generally pick races where it's the slowest time of year, where their athletes aren't nearly as needy, because as the season goes on, May to October, it's high level need from athletes. A lot of racing, a lot of adjustments, a lot of, psychology, a lot of life coaching. The demands are high. So you think about, I know you love certain races, but if you want to do a full again, do you think of a different one? Do you think of a different plan of attack?
Yeah.
But for a guy, again, going back to like the short, you have to be creative, right? So I know you, and I know you like things. So right now I'm saying, don't even, because what we've learned from you, I think in the past, is that, you're going to swim what you swim. Whether it's five times a week or 2 times a week, you're probably going to swim what you can swim, right? Which, like I said, is around that like 113 to 118 mark at a full at Wisconsin, because that's our sample set outside of Chattanooga and Louisville. So I wouldn't even have you in the water. I would just say, right now, ride twice a week, something pretty hard, something short, like an hour. That's it. But then run as much as you can, 5, 6, 7 days a week, maybe even twice a day. For the next couple of months, it feels incredible outside. There's still plenty of daylight, and then add in some strength training with it. Something at home, some push-ups, some lunges, some squats, something that feels like I'm not training for a triathlon, right? And I'm not training for a full. Because someone looked at it on paper, saw you running 5, 6, 7 days a week, maybe 30 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, and then you did some push-ups and squats and lunges, and then you rode twice a week and it was hard. They wouldn't think you were training for a triathlon. I don't see any swimming. I don't see any of this. I don't see any of that. Well, you're not training for a triathlon yet. You're training to get fitter and stronger, right? And you're training to establish a pattern and a habit, while also recognizing and appreciating your love and I think just kind of innate desire to be creative and push the norm, right? You don't like being put in a in a hole or a bucket, or you just like to do your own thing. And if you feel restrained, you automatically push back. I know that's not me. So you got to find ways to, and I'm right. So you got to find ways to allow you to kind of do those things while at the same time, right? It's sales 101, right? You always want to let them think it's your idea, not theirs, because then they're going to buy into it. It's like, car spills, and you don't tell them that, you let them think it's their idea. But you allow them to, again, you're being consistent, which is something that's not always been a strong suit. You are running a lot, which is the least time consuming, easiest to do, right? Add in some strength training, something that you love to do, and then biking hard, which is, something that you like to do in the trainer. You're not going to be on there for a lot of time. So then you do this for a certain period of time, and then you change it up. You do something totally different. And to keep you engaged at the same time, still being pretty consistent, allow a bit of flexibility, and then maybe you move to doing something totally different. Maybe you're doing 4 45-minute rides a week, and two of them are all out, two of them are easy, and then you do a couple long runs during the week, and then maybe a swim, which maybe not be possible because it'll be so damn cold up there by then. But you're keeping it fresh, and so what happens then is you get to a certain fitness level, you're creating durability, you're creating strength, you're addressing some weaknesses. Again, if your weakness is that you can't lift 500 pounds, you don't immediately start to lift 500 pounds. You start to lift 50. And you lift 50 a lot. Then you move to 60. You move to 70. You move to 80. That is like if you talk to like some of the, and this is totally applicable to the age group of athlete. When you talk to a lot of professional coaches, they'll tell you that they start at the end and work their way backwards. What are the demands of the day? At a high level, you look at, my athlete has to swim a 47-minute swim, has to bike, at an average of, 4.5 watts per kilogram, and they have to run, a 2:38 marathon to win Kona. All right. Well, now I got to work my way backwards. It might take 6 months. It might take 3 years. I remember if you listen to one of the interviews that Dan Lorang had with John Ferdinand, John knocked on his door. He was like, all right, they never met. I want you to coach me and I want to win Kona. And he said, well, I think it was like 2 or 3 years. I think in 3 years we can do that. Because he had to plan his way back. Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah.
And I think and I commented about this and we'll get back on top, but I commented this on an athlete today who's training for a marathon and worried about this and stressing about that and wants to qualify for Boston. I said, listen, having a great race day and a great day altogether, especially for something as hard as a marathon, because I think it's just as if not harder to nail the perfect marathon it is an Ironman. I said, unless you have a lot less control than you think you do over the day. And unless you're retiring or quitting the next day, chill the fuck out. Right? So many athletes make grave mistakes in their training and their approach because they have to get it all by the next race. It's not where can I get if I do it right for the next year or 2 years, but what can I do drastically to flip the script and to be impulsive and to go all in for the next 6 months? Because I've got to have it. It's got to be done. I've got to do it now. Right. So again, like there's that approach. And then like, for a guy like you is maybe let's say you're signing up you're doing a race that I'm just making shit up in October of next year. And maybe you got June and you're like, I'm actually feeling really, really good. Well, the thing is that the better you feel, the more eager people become. Right?
Oh yeah.
You don't dread a 4-hour ride because 3 hours ain't nothing because you've seen it, right? You're not starting from scratch because that is a, it's, again, go back to the comment I made in Train Peaks this morning. This guy was like, I'm starting over. And I said, I see that. Starting over is always better than not starting. And so the longer you wait to start, the harder it's going to become, right? We see people who do a race in September, like, you just did, and then don't do shit till February and then start all over again. They wonder why they never get the same. They get the same result. So for a guy like you, that's what I would do. And then by the time you get to something, I'm not asking you to do a total 180. I'm just asking you to kind of like look over here for a minute. And that allows for a lot more opportunity and kind of eagerness, because when you start to see fitness and feel good, you crave it more. And that's the approach that a lot of people should take when they look at the next year or even 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely excellent advice. I think that one of the toughest things, and it's certainly for me, and I think a lot of people, is getting done with an Ironman and then, relaxing for a while and doing the right things for a while to get your body back, but also taking advantage of that day. And it doesn't have to be biting off huge chunks. It can just be because the fitness, I mean, I was, I guess, technically riding for about 6:15, 6:20 during that race. And, but that's the longest ride I've done, and certainly the hardest probably. So there's gotta be something in there, but like you're saying, I love those, hour long rides, those hard rides. And just to kind of get that momentum going right now is crucial. I think not only for me, but for a lot of people, if they're looking to get better next year. And yeah, I mean, my plan is to kind of I got to swim a little bit more than that because time is running out before the ice caps the lake right in front of me.
In the water, yeah, time is running out.
And also, I think that's good for my body right now.
I agree, but on the flip side of that is, yes, it's good for your body, but if you're not going to be able to swim at all from November to March or April, then why are you wasting time doing it now? Because that fitness will be gone.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, it's just recovery stuff right now. That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah. Right now, this week and next week, yeah.
Because that water will be a little chilly. It's like ice baths, and I got my sauna set up. It's going to be swim sauna for a few days or weeks. That's all I'm thinking. But you're right, man. Yeah, it's like, I really, well, you brought up a great point about the coaching and the timing of everything. And, I love Wisconsin. I love to race it. And it's really not ideal for me as far as, because, we got, I don't know, 15 athletes racing that weekend and a lot of stuff coming in the fall. So I'm just, from a coaching perspective, I'm thinking about something different. I don't know. We'll see. But, yeah, moving on.
No need to decide now.
No.
On a rate, but it's always good to decide on what you can do better or how to get there and work your way backwards. I think it's always a great, overall approach when it comes to, working your way backwards and trying to figure things out. And it really does, I think it helps people be objective on what they can do and what they can't do and what makes sense. And then really what excites them. Right. Yeah. I think when it comes to, unless you have that ability to just do things that you hate, which some people do, but you can't do it forever. Right. And is to always lean into what you love. Right. Because that also gives you the energy and the fuel to do things that you don't love. Right. So say you hate swimming. Well, then run and bike a lot. I think that'll give you energy and give you fitness and keep you energized and motivation. You feel like, someone's, that's your triathlon love language, but you still got to clean the dishes. You still got to take the trash out. You still got to go pick up poop in the backyard from the dog. You still got to be a parent, all these kind of things, which that might be your swim, but you can do this and you can do that. Like that, you have to, massage things in that way. Cause anytime an athlete feels like they're being force fed something, they will almost immediately revolt. Well, then I just won't do anything. I'll do nothing. I'm not doing that many swims. So you know what? I'm going to do 0. Even though 1 or 2 would be better, they will choose 0 because not all athletes but some athletes are like that. You have to, you have to recognize when they just really, really, really don't like something. But it's also very, very important for an athlete to also recognize that. Don't overstay your welcome, because then you won't come back. I think every year in the last 5 years, we have started to coach athletes who are just strictly devoted to running. They used to triathlon, but it doesn't fit in their life anymore. So now they're running only, running focused, marathons, half marathons, ultras, trail races, whatever. They're still in the game. They didn't just leave and never come back. And half of them, you know what they're doing? Back in the game.
Oh, back to triathlon, yeah.
Back to triathlon.
Back to doing the dishes, man.
Yeah, that's exactly. A guy who hasn't raced a triathlon in over 2 years. He did it 100K, did Black Canyon 100K earlier this year. He just hiked did like the Teton travel, whatever, some long ass thing with his wife. And he gets back. This is like 2 months ago. He gets back. We haven't done shit for swimming. Maybe we biked a little bit here and there because I generally think just, riding is great for running. Hey, I got an idea to run by you. What do you think about Muncie in 4 weeks? It's like not even close to being on the radar. And I'm like, fuck it, let's do it. Why not? And and it's all because he stayed in the game. He just was doing stuff that he loved. Didn't want to go to the pool anymore. Didn't want to bike much. Didn't want to do a bunch of running stuff. And now, because he's fit and he's in shape, he's like, "Ooh, this sounds exciting." Things don't sound exciting when you're not good. You know what doesn't sound exciting to me? Playing 36 holes of golf. You want to know why? Because I suck at it. Never played, no desire. Now, you ask me if I want to go play an 8 p.m. tennis match tonight, which I am, which is way past my bedtime. I'm all in because I like it and I love it and it excites me. And that's how you have to be about fitness and training and doing things that, make sense and keep you in the game long enough to do well and just long enough to be able to love and be comfortable going back and forth, not going all in and all out. Because that's how you yo-yo back and forth to getting the same result. Or what usually happens is you start to the performances degrade because you get older. And if you're not consistent enough and you're not reinventing the wheel, but you don't address certain things, then at some point it's not going to be breaking even. Sometimes it's just going to be, I'm just trying to minimize my losses. But you don't have to do it that way. And again, like that comes with a lot of being fresh and keeping things engaged and unplugging when you can and being flexible and doing and just you gotta have a long leash. You gotta really have a long leash, a 200-yard leash with your lab. You gotta have that as a coach with athletes and let them run a little bit, let them live a little bit. You can't have them on like one of those retractable 3 feet cords that you got on your 7-year-old at Disneyland because you're afraid they're going to run off and escape. You can't have that because eventually once you let them off, guess what? Disappeared, gone for good. They're going to be underneath the Magic Kingdom shoving funnel cakes down their throats. Yeah, it's that time of year, but that's why I think it's an exciting and invigorating time of year because you can always do something different to later on get a better result.
Yeah. And before we leave, I just want to say, I did race at 60 this year and just finished an Ironman. And so, I mean, there's something about there's the general practice of our training and our training plans that I followed. I mean, I feel absolutely pretty solid right now after doing all that. I mean, I felt pretty good even on Monday. There's something, I think that's where my head is right now more than anything. It's pretty amazing, and I feel grateful to be able to feel like this after doing what I just did. I mean, absolutely, shredding a 112-mile bike and just cooking myself so hard on a marathon. And then all of a sudden it's like, Thursday? And I'm not back, but, it's just amazing to kind of be able to walk away from something like that and feel like this. So that's where my, I guess, joy is in the moment.
Find some joy in it. And this game is crazy to think about.
It's just crazy. And I'm sure you hear it from a lot of people. I mean, I do. Yeah. It's like, I feel pretty good. It's like, what the hell?
Stop. Go do nothing for a little bit. It's good for you.
Yeah.
Do nothing. And then while you're doing nothing, if you're one of those athletes, we'll end it here. If you're one of those athletes that like can't sit still, right? That's I got to do something. I can't just not do anything. I got to have my structure. Then instead of going out and trying to run 3 days post Ironman, which is a stupid thing to do, frankly, grab a cup of coffee, grab a notebook, and go write out what you did right, what you did wrong, where you could do things better, and what you want to accomplish next year and how you can do it. Use your mental energy and emotional energy to do those things.
Yeah, bake it in.
Not just going out and running on, semi-broken limbs after racing hard for whatever distances was. Do stuff like that.
What a great point.
You're still being proactive in your fitness and your future.
What a great point, man. Just to bake in your learning.
Yeah.
Because how quickly we forget every single time we go out and train. Damn it. Just yesterday, I said I wasn't going to do that anymore. Make it part of you.
Yeah. I'm not going to do this, or I am going to do this. It's really powerful reminders that I think we don't say enough. I think, and to be very blatant and blunt with it, right? With yourself or with, a person you confide in, not to the whole world, right? Because, but to find someone, and or that's a coach or your significant other or a buddy, and just to remind them, I'm gonna win next year, whatever it is. Win a race, win a podium slot, win a PR, win a finish line, win something. I'm gonna finish this race. Something. I'm gonna do this. Not hashtag crushing it. Look at my 30-minute run on Facebook and Strava. That shit doesn't do anything for anybody. It's like fake. It's like a fake massage of your ego. You're doing it because you're like, I think I kind of doing good, but please tell me I am. Okay, good. 45 legs. Whew, good. Third fastest cul-de-sac sprint in the Mills Farm. You're like,
I think I got it.
Got it. You're like, see, I am on track. No, find somebody who's like, this is what I'm going to do. Because that's the stuff that leaves and I think allows you to retain these powerful messages that carry you through the winter months, right? I don't want to get up and run when it's 20, but you know what? You know what I tell you yesterday? I want to do this. And I want to still, you just want to do it today? Yeah. Then get your ass out there. Right. And I think the longer you say it, the more you believe it, the more you like, and I'm not talking fake belief, like what I was talking about on Strava and Facebook and hashtag crush it. That real quiet, confident belief where you don't have to talk very much. You just kind of go in and it's always funny, like when you look at some of the bigger races and people say, they're just kind of flying under the radar. Well, now flying under the radar means you're not just an overshare social media, personality. You just go about your business and put in a lot of work and instill confidence and go out there and just fucking kill it on race day. And it's flying under the radar. Sam Laidlow, second in Ironman World Championships last year. Not a really huge social media presence, hasn't done that too much this year. Goes out and just obliterates the field. Yeah, you're kind of flying under the radar. As the guy who got second last year, he's flown under the radar. He's got this like really, high level confidence that rubs some people the wrong way, but I love it. He's just really confident in himself, right? He doesn't have his own, grotesquely overdone YouTube channel where he talks about a lot of stuff that he wants to do. He just does it. And so when you're going in this season and you want to run more and you need an accountability partner, you don't need an accountability social media account. You need to find someone that will, keep your shit tight, keep it on track, and hear you when you say that, and also kind of float those reminders out there. Hey, didn't you say you were going to do this? When they see things maybe like the ship steering a little different direction, or maybe you're in a tough spot. Hey, didn't you tell me you were going to do this? Oh, shit, you're right. Have some of those. And doesn't have to be anything, just insane, but it just needs to be something purposeful that means something to you. So take that. Again, if you're still racing this year, don't get ahead of yourselves. Don't start thinking about next year. Finish off this year with the bang. Do the best you can. Focus on the things you can control. And as always, we love you. We appreciate you all. Hope you were able to survive the fact that we did no intro today. I kind of like not doing it. Maybe we'll just stick with that. Now that we got the shirt, we could just roll right through. If you are looking for camps to hop in on, check out our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. Got a few slots open for our Nashville camp next year. Our Texas swim camp is sold out with a giant wait list. I've got one more slot left for a swim camp here in Overland Park next month. And then we've got a few slots open for our Wisconsin Tri-Camp, which is next July, next August, somewhere around there. You can find more information on our website or email summer at c26operations@gmail.com. If you need anything from Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from me specifically, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. That sounds good.
I'll see you next week.
You got it. All right, buddy.
Go Vols.
We played Georgia State.
Well, you can at least get a W.
It's time to get that air raid in motion. All right, man. I'll catch you later.